intersection between couples and relationships and how... That sounds wrong. The intersection. The intersection. Hey there, community, and welcome to you, especially if you are new. My name is Chris Waters, the Australian Huntsman, and this is my beautiful wife, Amy.
Hiya.
First time recording, which is pretty exciting about that. But this is a video that we've been thinking about for a long time, and basically what we wanted to discuss was how relationships and hunting fit together and how they work, and some of the tensions that having a partner who is involved in hunting can cause to the family and to the relationships, and essentially some tips about how you can solve them.
Yep, so I'll be sharing some of my tips, the things that I've put in place that help me support Chris to get out into the high country and enjoy a good hunt.
All right, so without further ado, let's get to the first question. So Ames, what was your first initial reaction when I said that I wanted to start hunting?
Oh man, I thought it was such a leap. We had been getting more into learning about sustainable food practices, spending more time as a family outside, growing our own food, our fruit and veggies, and raising chickens, and then all of a sudden you told me you wanted to get a gun, get your gun license, and get out hunting, and it just felt really foreign. And I really didn't get why you wanted to do it. I thought it was all about some masculine, testosterone-fueled, like shooting spree.
But that was one of the first tensions, right? I remember especially in that initial conversation, it was about the firearms specifically. It wasn't so much about, and correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't so much about the hunting element. It was about why do you want a firearm and why, and we need to discuss if you're going to bring a firearm into the house, right?
Yeah, and of course we had little boys. Eli and Parker were 3 and 5, I think, and I'd heard so many stories, read so many stories about how firearms had led to accidents or incidences in the home where children got hurt, and that was something I definitely wanted to avoid. So I was very firm.
You'll learn that my wife is a very firm woman.
On making sure that the guns were in a locked gun safe, that gun safe was drilled down into the slab.
Yeah.
That I didn't know where the keys were for the gun safe. The boys didn't have access to that. And for the first little while, we didn't even talk to the boys about it or tell the boys that there were guns on the property. I just thought that they were too young, and we were sort of too new into that lifestyle to share it with them.
And I remember actually speaking to Amy, and we were talking about some of the things, the ways that we could mitigate risk, essentially, because that was one of the big concerns, is risk around our boys and firearms. We could trust ourselves, obviously, but we didn't know if we could trust our boys around firearms. And so one of the agreements, and we'll get into some more tips and tricks later about things that you can do to help manage that tension in relationships, but one of the tips and things that we chose was that I would wear the key to the gun safe around my neck at all times.
In fairness, that was your choice, and that was not me being firm. That's for sure.
No, but I thought, well, like
we've progressed since then.
We have progressed since then. In fact, we have firearms in the house, not like in the house, but firearms sometimes come into the house, and the boys are around that now. So things have changed, but
on rare occasions without any ammunition.
Correct.
Like some caveats to firearms being in the house.
But I just know that, like, I thought I was trying to come up with solutions to make it work. I thought if I have like literally the key around my neck at all times, I can know that our boys will never get into that safe because it's around my neck. And I was even like talking about, like, do I sleep with it around my neck?
Thank goodness you've now got a pin code on the safe.
Yeah, exactly.
We've removed that one particular key.
But
from
there's
the
still
situation.
a key to the ammunition box within the safe. So and obviously that the firearms and the ammunition are kept separate. And that's some of the thing is like education, both the learning of the hunter and then the ability to communicate those things to your partner, to say, if we're going to have firearms on the property, the firearm and the ammunition will be separate. They are locked separately, and so you can't if someone was to even get into the safe, a child for instance, they can't access a weapon that can do any damage. It's just a firearm, no ammunition, no magazine, nothing, sometimes even no bolt in the firearm. So that's interesting. I mean, what have been some of the... So we have the issue of the initial kind of confusion around it, right? Which we kind of talked about.
And I think one of the other things that I didn't understand how it would work, because we were living on like a 600 square metre block in the middle of suburbia. And apart from our friends that were 3 hours away where you could hunt on their property, you didn't have connections. I didn't know that there were things like guided hunts, and Hunting Trips Australia didn't exist back then.
Oh, there's a plug. We'll get to that later.
And so it felt really foreign. Like, what's the point in having these guns when you've got nowhere to actually hunt, and what are you going to hunt? That was, something I had to wrap my head around a bit more.
A question that I actually haven't even discussed with you was, for you, was it a big leap between, because previously I'd done spearfishing quite a bit, and Amy was more than comfortable with that, fine with that, never had any objections to that, but was it a big leap in your mind for someone to have an interest in spearfishing and harvesting fish from the ocean, as opposed to then transitioning into hunting and pulling out game animals and meat?
No, I don't think it actually was. And like, you know, this dad, so my dad was a hunter before he died, and that was very much a part of Austrian culture. There was a big Austrian community in Geelong and around Geelong, and they would all go up to Mount Beauty, go hunting. So it definitely wasn't that. I think it was more the firearm aspect and the safety aspect, and then the lack of opportunities to hunt, and the requirement that it would take you away from home, whereas where we had been living, 20 minutes, half an hour to the beach, made life a bit easier to access spearfishing opportunities. Well,
let's talk about some frustration, because I think that's a good lead in. That's one of the frustrations I think you had. But yeah, once I started hunting consistently, what were some of the big points of tension, the big frustrations, the things that made it difficult to essentially be okay with it or release me or anything like that?
I think there were probably two main things. The first was just the time away from the family. Without living in an area where there was ample hunting opportunities, it meant you have to go away. It's, you know, a 4 or 5 hour drive to some of your best hunting spots. That means that for it to be a worthwhile hunt, you have to go away overnight, if not overnight or 2 nights away. And that means that I am at home with our boys without much support. And that can just be tiring, because they can be a lot of effort. They are energetic boys. When they missed their dad, they relied on me for everything. So that was really challenging. The other thing, and this will sound really silly,
I don't know what he's going to say, so I'm keen to this. This is going to be a zoom in moment.
I was like nearly more annoyed when you were successful.
Yeah.
So like if you went off hunting, you'd say, I'll be back by 3 p.m. on a Sunday. I'll be like, right, I can work with that. But if you had been successful and you'd got a deer, you weren't present
wasn't
at 3
available
p.m.
when they get back.
Like, you may be on the property, but you had work to do, and that was really challenging, because I wanted to offload the kids. Like, I was done by that stage.
And that work, just to be so we're all on the same page, is like them breaking down the deer, butchering, maybe starting the process of tanning a hide or whatever that is. It's like not just to come home and then doing other things. It's like there's like a time limit in which, so the meat doesn't degrade. You have to do things, which makes it really hard.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of tension there, because I wanted you available to the family, but I also understood that it was a wasted trip if I asked for your time right then and you didn't actually break down the deer or butcher it, because the meat would spoil and it would be useless. So the hunting trip would have gone to waste, and then you would have taken an animal's life, and we wouldn't have utilised the meat, and that would have just been a waste.
So there's a tension between like managing like energy levels. It's like, I'm stuffed, I've had the kids for 3 days, but then emotional kind of tensions as well of, you said you were going to be home, now you're home, but you're not available. How is this fair? Like, I'm sure we can talk about the idea of fairness is a tricky one that we've had to navigate on.
And so now I just add on like 4 hours. Yeah. So if Chris says I'm going to be home at 3 p.m, I'm like, oh, okay, he'll tuck the kids in at 7 p.m. because he, if he's successful, and it's a pleasant surprise. That sounds really odd. A pleasant surprise if Chris is unsuccessful and I actually get him his attention and his support from the minute he walks in the door or drives back onto the property.
And without getting too thick into the weeds in terms of like offering tips just yet, but I will say one thing that I've learned during this process, which I think has helped manage this tension and help support each other, is not all the time, but often I'm thinking about towards the end of a hunt of, do we need to be here this last day? Like, if I'm out in the high country, do we need to leave? Like, you know, do we have to stay an extra day, or can we leave now? I'm always, and it's not just because I'm missing the family, but it's about, okay, what can I do for Amy that will help alleviate some of that stress? Because I know that she's stressed, and when I'm out hunting, I want to be thinking about the hunt, I want to be enjoying myself and relaxing, but at the same time, I keep like a part of my mind sensitive to what she's going through and how I could help, maybe even make things a little bit easier. And I mean, I think often
that has backfired though on some occasions. I remember one time when
the truth comes out.
Chris and Tyson and Lukey were out, and I think we're getting pulled in a lot of different directions from their partners, but not by me. I was
Amy,
like, yeah,
Amy
see ya.
is very far down this road of like journey, but other people less so.
And our kids are older than what our our niece is, so that makes it easier. But Chris came home at something like midnight
on the second day,
and then went into the guest house, and the next morning he was absolutely stuffed because you'd hunted morning, hunted night, then got in the car and driven 4 hours home. Yeah. And so he was useless the next day anyway. It would have actually been better for you to stay up there and just, sleep up there and come home first thing in the morning.
Well, and this is another complexity I think that not a lot of people think about, is hunting is best done when in community, in camaraderie with, brothers and sisters, and not just like what I mean by brothers, but like blood, but I mean like friends. And so then you have to deal with the complexities of the management of their relationships as well. So when you're out with 2 or 3 other people, you have to think about how their spouses are feeling, not just yours, and managing all of those tensions. So on that trip in particular, 2 of the partners were going through some things, and so it made it difficult for them to be away. And they kind of, the husbands were released, but not fully released, maybe.
On that particular trip, I was like, see ya, I've got plans.
Have fun, yeah. And so it made it hard. So, yeah, I mean, one thing we haven't talked about, but you've alluded to, is whether I'm successful or not coming home from a hunt, I'm generally stuffed. Like physically, like exhausted, like emotionally completely filled up, because that's how I get recharged, is by being out there in the bush and relaxing.
Yeah, but useless for chores.
And so that's something that I've learnt to manage, is when I'm out there hunting and I'm pushing myself physically to make sure I have enough in the tank that when I get home, I'm not useless. That the next day is not a write-off, because that's really important, and we'll get to, I guess, again, that I'm available emotionally, that I'm available physically to do chores and do things. And so, I mean, have you found that's somewhere like an area that we've progressed?
I think
I'm less stuffed after a hunt.
Yeah, you're a bit fitter now.
Yeah, that's true.
But single day hunts have made life a bit easier. So you found a few spots closer to home, not particularly fruitful spots, but you have been able to go out. Yeah. Have that time by yourself. I'm a real talker. Chris is not, surprisingly. You might not think that from his videos, but I just don't stop. So Chris needs that time out, and that quiet and that time in nature. And so having those opportunities close by means that you can get away. And even recently I was like, go off for 2 days, and you came home after a day and was like, I missed you. And I was like, I hadn't even noticed you'd been gone.
Amy's great as well for helping me. Amy understands logistics and understands me better than I understand myself sometimes. So I was planning this 2-day hunt, and she's like, what have you got for food? I said, I've got like 3 apples, I'll be fine. And he's like, maybe I had 2 apples, maybe I had 1 apple. And he was like, you need more than that. And she was right. Even though I came home early and ate all the 2 days worth of food in a single day.
So I went shopping and I bought things that you could eat without having to cook. So nice pizza rolls and things like that. I think Chris wants to do a plug for Hunting Trips Australia.
Okay, I'll do it now.
With the goal of connecting Australian hunters together in real, honest, genuine community, in 2022 on January 1st, I created my own hunting club, which I now want to invite you to join. Along with the standard member inclusions like public liability, hunting insurance, and genuine reason to own a firearm, our club also offers free member-hosted hunts and access to private property, monthly hunting gear and guided hunt giveaways, and a bunch more. And if you sign up to the club or upgrade your existing membership in the months of May, June and July of this year, you automatically go in the running to win over $550 worth of Gerber gear. But more important than all those things, we are a small community of optimistic and passionate hunters committed to growing and supporting each other through honest relationships and learning. And we also love feeding our families clean organic meat. It doesn't matter what hunting style you prefer or the type of game you like to hunt, our community is diverse and accepts all hunters. So if that sounds like the kind of community that you want to be involved in, I want to personally invite you to become a member of the Hunting Trips Australia Hunting Club. Care deeper, hunt harder, and grow together.
All right, we're back. So maybe we can start moving into some tips and tricks, but I'll kind of frame it in a question. What, over the course of our journey, what do you think has changed? What have you seen change in me, attitudes or practices change in me to make things easier? What has changed in you?
I'd have to say that I think you're a more mature hunter now than, say, 5 or 6 years ago. I think it's evolved to be something more than just shooting. It is appreciation for nature. It is harvesting food that our family can eat. And it's that quiet time connecting with friends and family that you're out hunting with. So I think it's definitely more of who you are as a person rather than something you want to do.
Has that made it easier?
I'm definitely more comfortable with the concept now.
Because it's not something abstract and separate. It's like, no, this is who Chris is. Chris is a hunter. It's
not as scary. It doesn't feel dangerous. And I think one of the things that has really helped me have more comfort has been knowing that you're being taught and mentored by other people. So when we first moved out to our property about 4 years ago, and so we're probably 6 months in, I'd bought you a guided hunt up in the high country, and got a full guided version with the aim of you working with someone who knew what they were doing and could share those tips with you so that you could really learn how to be more successful, how to be safe. And that gave me more comfort. And then seeing you being mentored by other more experienced hunters has really helped with that as well, because I know that you're safe and looked after. Having some gear as well, like the GPS, I think that was a big thing. That's also really put my mind at ease that if something does happen, you can be found. And that's actually a great, again, we'll move into tips in a second. I know I keep preferencing that, but we will never get to the tips. We will never get to the tips. That was something you were proactive in. It was a Father's Day gift, and so that's a great thing, that if you have a partner who's into hunting and you're concerned about their safety, you can do something about that. Like, you can buy them like a GPS that has I think they call them, there's a name for it. I'll put it in the comments or drop it up here somewhere. But basically sends off a beacon, like an SOS beacon, which are really important. Just this last 2 weeks, someone has gone missing in the high country, and an older man, and I think he's gone. That's it. So it is dangerous, and that's a reality. But there's things that you can do to mitigate that. And for the spouse, the partner, to take the initiative in helping in that space is really good. All right, tips and tricks. I'll read the question. The question's gone. What are some tips and tricks that you can offer as advice to people who have in the relationship one of the partners involved in hunting that can help make things better, help be fruitful relationship? I've got a few. Oh, here we go. This is the meat. This is why you're watching the video. This is the meat of it. Let's get rid of the veg. Let's get the venison out. So the first thing would be to try and, partner with your partner in their hobby. And that means learning a bit more about it so that you're able to have interesting discussions. We've done really simple things, like we've watched meat eat together as a family, and that's led to discussions where Chris would say, well, I've seen that deer, or boys, that's a technique that I use when I'm hunting. And so that has really brought it into something that's for our family, as opposed to being just a me thing and isolating that. And it's something that you're really passionate about, and I want to support you in that passion. So knowing a bit more about it, like, don't get me wrong, I am not watching hunting blogs and vlogs and
she'll watch this video, but she'll that's
just
the only
to make sure I look
that
okay. But I think that has helped, getting to know a little bit more about it, flicking through a magazine that you've got lying around, and just having discussions with it, and supporting you to share your story. So it's not something that you have to hide or keep separate, that you get to be your full self.
Well, it's almost like an extension of a journey that we've already been going through, right? And this is probably what makes it a little bit easier than some couples, is that prior to hunting, I was already into spearfishing, and we'd already had started the journey towards sustainability, getting closer to our food, appreciating nature, conservation, all these things that hunting melds really well with. And so it was a little bit easier for us in that once we both understood hunting a bit more, that it became an extension of that journey, but also helped feed in. So, prior to hunting, we'd had been growing our own meat with pigs, but never been eating wild game. And so that kind of introduced an element of, well, here's some venison or whatever, into that mix. So that's a really good point, embracing it.
And I would say get out there with them. Not saying pick up a rifle, like, I've got no desire to do that, but if you can, schedule a trip where you're going somewhere together, define some limits around, go off on 1 or 2 hunts over the course of the weekend, so that your partner gets their fill in the hunting space, you get time away together, and you can invest in that time outdoors, I think is really helpful. The next thing I would say is...
Even roll, this is gold.
Particularly if you're staying at home, ask for what you need.
Yeah.
That is something that I wasn't so good at originally. I'm now very good at it.
Yeah. We have this discussion all the time. I said to Amy, I'm a very simple human being. I'm a very simple man. Don't leave things grey, black and white. Tell me, list A, B, I need you to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And if you don't do those things, you don't say this, but it's like, in my mind, I know if I don't do those things, Amy won't feel supported. Amy will feel bad. Amy will feel tired, etc.
Yeah, and it can be a huge range of different things. So normally I'll say, can you get some groceries? Give a grocery list. If we've got guests staying in our Airbnb, can you make sure the Airbnb is clean in advance?
Can I do some vacuuming? Can I make sure I do the dishes? Can I do the washing so that there's not a whole bunch of washing kind of...
Or get some firewood and put it at the back door so I'm not having to go out
it's
to the
little
woodshed.
things, right? Little quality of life things.
And often some of those things that I probably take for granted that you do when we're parenting together, that feels like such an added burden when you're away and I'm already tired and I'm in the middle of cooking dinner and the fire's running low and there's no wood at the back door.
Yeah.
And then the final thing would be to ask for time for yourself. So that's something you've been really good at encouraging me to do. I think you've said many times, Amy, you need to get a hobby.
Get a hobby. And then Amy's follow-up will be, but I'm tired. I'm like, yeah, but hobbies help you be energized. They give you energy. But it is hard. It's hard to be motivated in that space.
And so finding something that you can do for yourself, particularly if you're a mum, or you're the other parent staying at home.
Yeah, stay-at-home dad.
Yep. Then having that time for you to just be yourself. And for me, it's doing things that don't benefit anyone else but myself. So recently I've gotten into hiking. That is something that when I'm out there, and I've made the mistake of taking the kids on a trail, it was a failure. But when I'm out there and I'm by myself or I'm with a girlfriend, it's not something that serves the family in any way. It's not, a hobby like cooking, which seems to benefit everyone, or vegetable gardening, where you're producing food for the family. Like, it is really something that is just for me. And that helps fill up my cup, re-energize me. And when I'm given that time off and supported by you to have time to myself, it's a lot easier to be more reciprocal and to say, all right, well, hang on, like, looking at this week, there's an opportunity for you to go off during the day and I can pick the kids up early if you're not home in time, and to start to look at some of those different opportunities.
That's good. Maybe I'll offer one final tip before we close things up. Something that I've learned is to hold a hunt that you want to do loosely in your hands, in the sense that when you approach your partner, your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever it is, to not expect that that's going to happen, or to not start planning it before you've even asked, because there's a danger, especially if you're doing with other people. You get the ball rolling, and then all of a sudden you're kind of committed to that. So if often I'll say to Amy, the second that one of my friends says, hey, I want to go on a hunt, I'll bring it straight to Amy and say, hey, person has said they want to go on a hunt, and I get communicate, I'd like to go on that hunt. Here it's going to be for this day until this point, or I don't have all the answers yet, but I can go and get them. What do you think? And for it to be a legitimate, what do you think? Not a, I want to do this, it's happening, deal with it. It's a, can we make this work? And then often Amy's actually really, really good at just saying yes. And has always been really good. At the start, it was kind of more of a reluctant yes, and I knew that it was like, okay, we're not quite there yet. This is actually going to hurt if I go on this hunt in terms of our relationship, as opposed to now Amy's like, yeah, sure. In fact, recently I had a really late notice request on a really invite on a terrible time, and I said to Amy almost flippantly, oh, this has come up, and Amy's like, yeah, go on it. And I was like, oh, really? And
in hindsight, that was a tough weekend.
It was terrible, but it was good. It was fun for me.
Because you just got to jet off.
But it demonstrates, I guess, the growth that you can achieve in a relationship, to the point where if you hold things loosely in your hand and you do put the relationship first, then you'll get to the point where things get easier, and where there's a trust there, and there's kind of points in the bank, or trust in the bank, that you can then leverage is the wrong word, but things just work. And be okay if you say, hey, I'd really like to go on this trip, and then your partner says, look, that's not going to work, that you don't kind of go, well, then I'm just going to be grumpy and mean and frustrated. But to go, all right, knowing that there will be another opportunity. And
it's okay to say no.
100%.
I think we all want to be supportive partners, but there are some times when it's just not going to work. We had a hunt maybe 6 months ago where Chris went midweek, and Chris is really fluid with his work. I'm not. I work 9 to 5, and so to try and fit school runs, work commitments, and then doing all of the sort of before school work and dinner and bed and bath time, that was really challenging. And so I've actually now sort of set some parameters around what will work. And for our family, midweek overnight hunts just don't work. Our kids are too young for that at the moment, and it's too much hard work for me at the moment.
Whereas a short 1 day or half a day midweek hunt is perfectly fine.
Yeah, even if you aren't home in time for the boys to go to bed.
Yeah, knowing that I'll be there the next day. It's just one night,
and in the morning you're there, you're not that tired, and you're ready to do the school run. And
I think this is a really key thing that we've learned, to be flexible and mindful, that it doesn't have to look like this. It can be hunting can look a lot of different ways. It can be 20 minutes down the road shooting some rabbits. It can be a 3-day bonanza out in the high country. It can be a half a day hunt, if that works for you. And kind of one thing that I feel like we've grown is putting the feelers out there and finding out what works and what doesn't work. And there's been things that clearly don't work.
And keep a calendar. That's a That's actually that's a really good tip.
That's something that we need to learn to do, because we're actually terrible at this. We just bought a calendar recently. You got it for free.
Halfway through the year.
Halfway through the year. The lady in the news agency was like, "Why do you want a calendar in June?"
But that helps to map out all of the different commitments, and sometimes it's all right to say no, even if there's nothing on that weekend, because you can use a calendar and see that the 3 weeks before and the 3 weeks after are just hectic, and you just need some time at home.
Yeah, that's good. Well, they are our tips and tricks on how you can manage having a partner that's into hunting and have it be successful and actually so into your relationship. If you have any questions at all about this video, questions for myself or questions for Amy, I haven't asked her, but I'm just throwing in the deep end, let us know in the comment section below. I'll be showing Amy this video so that she can see and comment as well. And otherwise, if you haven't checked out Hunting Trips Australia Hunting Club, go do that. It's a great way to foster a sense of community, meet other hunters, have discussions with them about how they deal with hunting. Deal's the wrong word. How they manage hunting in their relationships. It's a fantastic community and I encourage you to check it out. huntingtrips.com.au/membership. Otherwise, I'll see you in another video soon. In fact, Amy will also be in a video soon. She doesn't even know. She doesn't even know what video it's going to be, but there is a plan for a video. Anyway, see you later.
Bye.